Today, we'll be here for your next educational course. Hello, how are you doing?
Swell.
I'll go sit over here. Go, move down to the front so we can, you know, be more intimate. Steady. I like you already. Hello.
Hello.
My name's Mark Ryan, and for the last 8 years I have been extremely lucky and fortunate to be associated with this massive machine called Transformers, of which I'm very, very proud. And I don't care what the critics say about the films. And I'll start by saying I think that everybody that's a film critic, online film critic anyway for the most part, should actually have to make a film and find out what it's really like trying to make a big film. And I've been involved with some big ones other than Transformers, and it's very difficult. Making a small film's not easy either, but making a big film is very difficult. So anyway, we're going to just throw this open to Q&As, and we're going to do left-hand brain, right-hand side of the brain. And so we're going to go this side and that side, and you can ask any questions you like. And if I don't want to answer, it's because I'm embarrassed or it's got something to do with something I can't talk about. But fire away, questions. Rock on. Yes, sir, right there.
How do you actually feel about your characters, both Jetfire and Lockdown actually being killed off, and they keep on coming to get you to play other characters?
We joke about it because Michael Bay has actually killed me off 3 times now. And I was beginning to take it personally. I was thinking, what is this? Because he killed me off as Mr. Gates in Black Sails as well. And although he didn't, that wasn't really him. In fact, he was, you know, I think he, like everybody, was a bit kind of shocked that they decided to do that, but that's what they did. I've been, in my career, shot, stabbed, blown up, disemboweled by Freddy Krueger, thrown off a cliff, strangled by Captain Flint, and stabbed in the stomach by Scorponok, and then had my head cut in half by Optimus Prime. So dying has become something which I've kind of got used to doing. It's just part of the acting thing. But I think, I don't know what they're going to do with Lockdown, to be honest with you. Because I know that Lockdown was a very popular character, and I know that Hasbro sold a lot of Lockdown, Aventador, Lamborghini toys. So I don't know what they'll do with that. I'm not saying that they'll bring it back, I don't know, but I think it was such a different direction to take one of the alien robots, because he's neither a Decepticon nor an Autobot. He's somewhere in between. He's a sort of a character who is immoral, really. He's not interested in what happens to the human beings. He's not interested in what happens to the Autobots or the Decepticons either. And he says that, you know, Autobots, Decepticons, always making a mess of the universe. And then I have to clean it up. And so I like that character because of that detached place that he was, you know, he's just a bounty hunter, he doesn't care, you know. So I read somewhere they're going to go off in different directions with the Transformers universe, which I don't know if they'll do that in Transformers 5, which has been announced. I would imagine they'll do 5 and 6. I can't see them not doing 2 more pitches at least. And I think they'll branch off and they'll do a whole different universe of Transformers stuff. So maybe one of them will come back into one of those universes, either Jetfire, which I was really excited to do, because when I was doing a play in San Diego at Balboa, in Balboa Park, there's a place they call the Globe Theatre, and it's got a Shakespeare festival, and there's an aeronautics, a space museum, and right outside of the aeronautics museum is an SR-71 Blackbird spy plane, and I used to drive past that every night when we did this play, and I would just park up and look at it and go, this thing was designed and built in the late 50s, and it's still the fastest airplane ever built. it still holds the record for altitude and speed. It was designed and built in the 50s, so can you imagine what we have flying now that we don't know about? There's stuff up there that's flying that we don't know about. So I used to park and get out and just walk around that aircraft, which was super, super secret until certainly the mid-late 70s. And look at it from different angles, and you can see why people mistook it for a UFO. Because it looks like something out of Star Wars. I mean, it's an amazing piece of machinery. So when I heard Michael told me he was going to be an SR-71, I was like, yes, absolutely. And just by way of two little stories, the two things I'm very happy about is that the voice is actually, some of you may have heard of an actor called Ray Winstone, who was in The Departed. He was in Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skulls. He's very well known as a British actor in the UK. He was in a lot of films. And we've been friends since Robin the Sherwood for almost 35 years. And so I was trying to find a voice for this character, and Michael said, well, make him more, you know, cranky and more so. So that's how we came up with Behold the Glory of Jetfire. And Ray called me up and left a message on my machine. He went, Marky, I've just been to see that Transformers film. You cheeky bugger. You're doing me. I've been everybody. I've been a gangster, I've been a merry man, I've been a knight of the round table, and now I'm a giant alien robot. You owe me a beer. So, absolutely true. And Michael said to me, who is that? Who are you doing? And the other story is that I'm the only man that ever managed to get the word bollocks into the Transformers lexicon. And only because nobody knew what it meant. And so there's one Swedish fire there, oh bollocks. So we put it in, and they kept it in, and nobody knew what it meant. And so when they worked out what it meant, they said, because when you do a TV version of it, you have to take out anything that might be, you know, risque or too violent or whatever. So they called me and said, we have to take out bollocks, we're going to have to put something else in. So I went back into the studio, and they said, well, what can we say? We ran through a lot of stuff, you know, wankers and tosspot, all these different words, and they were, no, we can't have that, it's American television, we can't have that. So I said, what about cobblers? Cobblers? What's cobblers? I said, well, it's not bad, my mother would say it, right? It's just, oh, cobblers, what are all cobblers? So they swapped the word bollocks for cobblers, and it's exactly the same thing. So, and they paid me twice to do it, so I was very happy. Yes, that's one of my claims to fame. Okay. So no, that doesn't answer the question at all. Here we go, young man here.
All right. First off, I just want to say, knowing that you're Jetfire, I find that interesting because a lot of the characters' voices in those movies do sound kind of indifferent at times. Like the actors are just kind of like, yeah, whatever, giant robots there. But when you played Jetfire, I did pick up an enthusiasm in your voice, you know, a gung-ho, like, yeah, here I am. Yeah, I really like that. Your characters do tend to stand out. But the thing I wanted to ask, I understand if you can't really answer this, but are there any characters that you hope appear in the next movie that haven't yet that you would like to voice based on? Yeah.
Well, for those that don't know the process, I'm actually on the set as well. So I work on the set with the other actors. So when they're doing dialogue, whether it's Mark Wahlberg or Stanley Tucci or there's Francis McDormand, Shia, for instance, when they're doing dialogue with a robot, they're doing it with me. I'm on the other side of the camera doing the dialogue. And I'm either sometimes been on a ladder 30 feet in the air, I've been hidden under tables, I've been literally all over the place, depending on when we shot at Cape Canaveral. I was literally standing underneath the space shuttle Endeavour doing dialogue with Shia. So I guess some of the enthusiasm to answer the first part of the question was because I actually feel a part of the development of the characters more. Because I can see what the actor's trying to do. And that's how I got hired, was originally to have an actor there that could interact with the other actors. And we've honed that process now to a place where, you know, we've got it down now. And usually, I think they're drilling holes through the, you know, they're fracking underneath the... Will you stop that fracking now? You down there. I usually got Michael here in his monitor, so I can see the monitor and see what the camera's seeing. And Amir, who's the DP, he's the director of photography, I've got his monitor, and I'm wired up for sound. so I can hear the actors, I can hear what the sound guys are hearing, I can see what's happening on the monitors, and I can ride with the cameras depending on what shot they're doing. And don't forget, sometimes we've got helicopters and air blasting propellers and vehicles flying through the air and all kinds of stuff. So it's very exciting. You know, a Transformers set is exciting. And Michael pushes hard, he's got to. It's a $200 million film. Usually they're all about 210, 200 million. So when you're dragging that kind of a machine with you, you have to keep the set moving, you know, and I like that. I like, you know, working with the guys, particularly the ILM guys and the sound guys, the sound crew, they're fantastic. And it's very rewarding. So I think probably helps me a little bit because I'm carrying the enthusiasm from the set into the sound booth, and I usually work with Michael in his sound booth in
monster trucks. Monster trucks. It's on that side of the wall.
Oh, okay, that explains a lot. Thanks for that. So I probably carry that because I actually see the progress of how the film's developing. And usually, Michael, we work, you know, with each other very closely. He'll say, try this or try that, or say this or say that. And for some reason, I'm able to do it. But I'm enthusiastic about it because I've seen it progress. Whereas a lot of the other guys, they come in, they do their voices, and they're just shown the animatics or the, you know, the CGI renderings. And so they kind of just got to do it off the bat. In fact, Peter came onto the set once, and I'd been doing Optimus Prime on the set, and I have done Optimus Prime. I've been all of them on the set at one point or another. I've been Megatron, I've been all of them. And because the dialogue, for whatever reason, they wanted to change the dialogue, or they wanted something more aggressive or different edge to something. And Peter was sitting there, and he watched me running around the set with Michael, and he looked at me and he went, I don't even know how you're doing this. He said, how do you know where they're going next? And I said, I'm cheating. Because I've got an earbud in. I'm wired for sound, so I can hear what's happening on the set. And he said, I couldn't do this. But all of that understanding what came on this set, going on the set, is my background as a fight coordinator on big films like King Arthur. I mean, I choreographed all those fights. I've had 900 extras, 60 stuntmen, and 10 leading actors, including Qn'A. You know, so there's almost as much as work behind the scenes and behind the camera as I have in front of it. So understanding what's going on in all of that was you know, a gift. It gives you an advantage.
One very last thing I want to say. I also want to compliment your performance as Lockdown, because even though he's a very different kind of character, I always got the feeling that he honestly believed every single word he was saying. And he is kind of right, because you look at any other version of Transformers, and every single Earth-like planet they've ever been to has eventually ended up a war zone. Like, completely uninhabitable, us caught in the crossfire or extinct because they just go living on and on forever, and we're always caught up in it. So...
Thank you. I mean, Lockdown was, to be honest, I mean, this is the true story, and it's out there in the public, but I'm sure Michael won't mind me telling. I was literally sitting at the top of the quarry where we shot some of the original moon stuff, where they're projecting the pictures, not the moon stuff, where they're inside the quarry anyway, and we're on the run. And I was waiting to do some of the voices, and we were going to go to the next night to the dock where we blew up the big boat, and he kills Ratchet. And I was literally thinking, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I had the television on. There was an advert for Jaguar cars. I don't know if you've seen it, but there's an advert for Jaguar, and it goes, why are all best bad guys in films British? Right?
I agree.
And they've got a certain sense of style. There's a certain elegance. And so I was listening to that, and I had to go down once you're on the set. So I run down on the set. And I went to the sound guys, and they wired me up for sound. I said, what are we going to be doing? Michael said to me, I want you to run alongside the Cayenne camera car and try and time the dialogue. So as we're moving forward and he shoots them, they're going to do the explosions timed to the dialogue, right? Because he wants to time out the length of the shot. So got that, okay, no problem. And I went to the sound guys and I said, I want you to turn up the big speakers. We have these big speakers on the set. Put them up really loud, because I'm going to talk very quietly. I'm going to whisper this to Ratchet. And literally, as I got on, Michael looked at me the first time we did it in the Cayenne, and I was literally running with the side of the car with Michael here and the monitor there so I could see the distance of what we had to get to shoot. And so I whispered that, "You humans always making a mess." But the speakers were so loud that it echoed around the dock, and it was really menacing. And I looked at Michael, Michael looked at me and he went, and it was just different. It was a voice that it was a different take on a character as well. So it was a different character to play and to voice. And then we refined it, and obviously then we worked on it when we got the post-production in the studio. So thank you. I enjoyed playing Lockdown a lot. And as a sidebar note, I have actually got to ride in a Aventador, Lamborghini Aventador. Oh my God. This kid brought one over, he borrowed one. We did this event in Yorkshire last year, and we had a copy of the original Bumblebee, a copy of the new Bumblebee. We had the Mustang that was in the first film, and we had the Hasbro's own Optimus Prime truck. And so we drove down the M18 in formation with a police escort. It was rather a lot of fun. And when the kid had this Lamborghini, and so when we drove back, he said, "I can't let you drive it." He said, "But you can have a ride in it if you like." So, well, it's worth about 370 grand or 400 grand or something this ago. So we drove back from Sheffield to Doncaster in this Lamborghini. I said, "Come on, nobody's looking." He said, "Let's see how fast it'll go." He went, "Oh, strap yourself in." And he put his foot down. Let me tell you, it was like being in an F-18 fighter. I've never, literally I went, and I won't tell you what we were doing, but it was probably twice the speed limit. And within a matter of seconds, this thing went from 70, 80 miles an hour. Literally, I looked at the clock and went, "Oh my God," it absolutely flew. So the Aventador is quite a vehicle. Anyway, all right, over this side of the brain's been very quiet. You're giggling and, looking like you've got an arm over there. Me, come over here.
I was going to ask if maybe I'm just stereotyping, but British, have you done any Doctor Who?
Do you know, I never did any Doctor Who. The nearest I got, there was a show called Community. I don't know if you've ever seen the comedy show Community. And there was a character in there called Dr. Spacetime, Inspector Spacetime. And they called me up, which was kind of bizarre, and they said to me, because I've done a lot of conventions, I guess, and they were like, "You've done a lot of these conventions, and apparently you're very popular and you like talking to people." I said, "Sure." I said, we want a new companion to Inspector Spacetime. So I became Constable Edmund or something, and he was the new Bobby companion to Inspector Spacetime. So that's and Inspector Spacetime, for those that don't know, is like an homage to Doctor Who. So the nearest I've got to Doctor Who is being in Inspector Spacetime. And then they killed off the show, so that was the end of that. But if they ever do invite me, I want to play the Master. I've told them that. I said, the only way I'm going to come back is to be the Master. Yes. So no, I've never done any Doctor Who. I know everybody else. There's a funny rivalry between independent television and the BBC in the UK. And if you do a lot of work for independent television for some reason, like I did, spent 3 years in Robin of Sherwood, the BBC get all sorts of, they used to get very fractious about it. And if you work for the BBC, like vice versa, you didn't do much work for independent television, unless they paid you vast amounts of money to go and do it. And there's a certain snobbery about that with the BBC, because they don't pay any money at all. And they're very, a little bit snobby about what they choose to do. So I never really did much work for the BBC. And probably that's why I managed to sidestep most of the skullduggery and scandals which has since overtaken the BBC about some of the big guys that they had involved. I was never aware of any of that. I didn't really work for them, so anyway.
Is there something on your bucket list for a big movie that you'd like to voice for?
I'd like to voice for. There's lots of projects I'm involved in at the moment. I have a comic book with Mike Grell that has just been picked up again to be republished, called The Pilgrim. And it's about psychic warfare during the Second World War, based on some basically true stories about how, if those that saw, anybody see Imitation Game? The film Imitation Game about...
Yes.
One of the questions which is in the film, which is not answered in the film, is once they discovered that they'd actually broken the code, they then had to hide how they were actually reading the German and intercepting the German radio traffic, because it was so important. In the words of Winston Churchill, in war the truth is so precious, she must always be accompanied by a bodyguard of lies. And that book, A Bodyguard of Lies, is standard digger reading for every intelligence agency in the world. So if you ever want to read a book about deception, intelligence work during the war, Second World War particularly, it's called A Bodyguard of Lies, Anthony K. Brown. And I know that because I've had Mossad guys tell me, we have to read that book. Everybody has to read that book. So everybody reads that book. And in that book, it broaches the subject, but what happened was once Alan Turing realized that they could break the code, they couldn't let the Germans know they'd done it. So what was called the London Controlling Section, which was Churchill's own psychological warfare department, he said, well, we have to convince them that we're doing something else. So what they actually did was they convinced the German hierarchy that we weren't reading their radio traffic, we were actually reading their minds. And they got together all the best top occultists, Aleister Crowley, Dion Fortune, Colonel Kim Seymour, a lot of guys that were involved in the intelligence business, and they waged magic psychological warfare on the Germans. And Himmler, who was head of the SS, took the whole thing, hook, line and sinker. That's why in the beginning of Raiders of the Lost Ark, the actual organisation was called the Qn'A, and their job was to go and steal every magical artifact that they could find around the globe to protect the Nazi hierarchy from the magic warfare that they believed was being waged on them. And out of that grew a lot of the stuff that then was experimented on after the Second World War. Those I was just in a show called Granite Flats, which is about MK Ultra. And for those that don't know, MK Ultra was a real thing, it's not a conspiracy theory. The CIA during the 50s kidnapped people off the streets, particularly in Canada, in Montreal, and tried to implant different personalities into people that then they could switch on or switch off. They actually tried to do this. And Granite Flats, the show I've just done, is all about the 50s and MK Ultra. They did do it, they tried to do this. And they do it by deep hypnosis and by giving people drugs and putting them into comas, and bringing them out again and trying to literally whitewash their brain. And for those that have seen the film Manchurian Candidate, they tried to do that. And so a lot of the stuff that came out in the 50s was following on from that, those psychological warfare operations. So the character of the Pilgrim, to answer the question, I know I've just rambled all over, that's what I do, would be the actual character of the Pilgrim himself, because this is quite an interesting character. It's a bit like Lockdown in a way. It's very, because he's not human. It's a sentient, what we call a sentient exomorphic anomaly. So it's a consciousness that does not reside in this dimensional space. It's from outside of that, and it manifests itself in this reality, and it takes on the form of the Green Man, the folio-faced Green Man, the God of the Forest sort of character. And he's able to come, he's able to appear, and appear through other people. So the character that's got this parasitical, intelligent entity from another dimension, and this particular creature, again, doesn't understand human beings, doesn't understand the concept of money, doesn't understand love, doesn't understand hate. He's just got a mission to do, and that's all he does. And he's learning how human beings, by watching and observing, interact with each other. So it's quite an interesting character.
That's awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Anybody over this side of the break? Come on now. Speak to Marky. I know you have a question. Talk with me. If not, I'll start asking you questions.
Going back to Lockdown, I do not know if you know this, but they kind of continued the Transformers Prime in this new Transformers Robot in Disguise. I was just thinking that they might actually bring in Lockdown later, like in the second season, and that because right now it's supposed to be Bumblebee, leading a small team trying to capture escaped convict Decepticons. So I think that probably Lockdown gets the mission to go down and help the Autobots instead of like attacking the Autobots. Would you do some voice work for that?
I would love to. I have to be a bit careful what I say because I'm obviously privileged to some stuff. And I think the way that they're approaching this, and I think it's sort of telegraphed in the end of Age of Extinction, you've got Optimus going back out into the universe to find the creators, and you've got a more symbolic set of icons like swords, and they talk about the knights and all of that kind of stuff. So I think if you look at what they've telegraphed, the way that they're going to change the show is in quite an interesting way. And obviously being involved with King Arthur and Robin Hood and all those things I've done in my career, I was very pleased when they showed some of that kind of stuff, because it resonates with people. It's not only iconic, it's archetypal. You know, there's an archetypal emotional response that people have to the concepts of the knights and out there on quests and defending the weak and you know, all that kind of stuff. So I think there's an archetypal storyline there about the Autobots in particular, with Bumblebee in particular, which is benign, the benign alien who are learning to interact with human beings. And that I think is a very interesting direction to take it. So I hope, yes, and if they ask me to do Lockdown again, they'd only have to ask me once. As yes.
I don't suppose you know who actually in G1 actually did create the Autobots in the first one.
Who created the Autobots?
Yeah, you know from G1, the original cartoon series and all? Or?
Who actually wrote those original scripts? I think they were Japanese. I know there's an entire museum, the history of Hasbro and Transformers in Tokyo. I haven't been, funnily enough. I've actually been to many toy museums in Tokyo. They dragged me everywhere except the Transformers one. And but I guess it must have come from that original Japanese concept of the toys, the folding toys, and you know, brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Because in the original cartoon they called the Quintessons. So,
okay.
So.
And again, I've had this conversation with people. I mean, we do not know what is out there in the universe. We have no idea. What we do is funny. We're just talking about it. We know this. We know that in California there's a lake called Mono Lake, which is absolutely full of arsenic. And so for years people believed that there was nothing living in this lake, Mono Lake, because it's literally poisonous, it's arsenic. Well, 2 years ago, while they were delving in there and trying to work out the chemical composition, they discovered that there were microbes living at the bottom of the lake that were able to consume arsenic and turn it into energy. So right on our own planet, we've got creatures that microbial life at least, that can live in the most inhospitable environments you could imagine. So I'm pretty sure that out there somewhere, there's all kinds of different forms of life. Maybe even in our own solar system, maybe even on Mars, I don't know. I've talked to enough people that believe there is anyway, including Buzz Aldrin. And so we don't know that somewhere out there in the universe there isn't an intelligent, sentient type of machine that has evolved from one state into being a machine that can fold and change itself and turn itself into different shapes and sizes. We don't know. So I would never knock it and say, and whenever I go in the world, when you talk to the kids, Transformers, particularly Bumblebee, and those the Autobots, have become urban myths. And I say to kids, does your daddy's Toyota Camry turn into a giant alien robot at night? He's not supposed to tell you, right? And the kids go, I wonder if he does. You know what I mean? The Toyota Camry, or your Fiat 500 is turning into something alien at night and going out there and saving the world. So I like that. I like the idea that we've made this modern urban myth. There's whispering going on over here. There's whispering going on. Come on now. No? What are you telling me what you're going to have for dinner? You're going to buy me a large vodka and tonic later on. That's what you're saying. Okay, I'll see it now.
She's claiming our car turned trees.
Yeah, mom's car's so stupid, no, but it probably just eats trees.
Say that again, loudly. So.
My mom's car, if it did, it's just so old and stupid that it probably just eats trees.
Okay. Hey, there you go. Yes, sir.
You mentioned doing fight choreography
Yes.
for Qn'A and stuff. What are some of the challenges that, I mean, I imagine it's all a challenge, but I'm just wondering if you could talk about the process of working with something.
Well, yeah, I did Robin Sherwood for 3 years of my life, and I trained with some of the best stuntmen there are in the business. Anybody now, like, that's made in the world of stunts. Steve Dent was our horse master. He's done massive films. He did King Arthur as well. He was the stunt coordinator on that. But the Powell family, Gary Powell, who does all the Bond films. These were all young stuntmen when I was starting out in the business. Greg Powell, who does all the Harry Potter films. So I ended up working and being trained by the best in the business. Teddy Walsh was our sword master. So I did nothing but sword fights and archery for 3 years of my life. Gabe Cronley was one of the best archers in the world. And so we had the best guys. And then I ended up doing a film called First Night with a guy called Bob Anderson, who choreographed Princess Bride, Highlander, Zorro, you know, stuntman extraordinaire, an Olympic fencer. And I assisted Bob on First Night. So if you've ever seen the film, there's a scene
Sean
right.
Connery?
Yes. Yes, he spoke to me. He said, "Who are you? What do you want? And get out of the way." So yeah, the one with Sean Connery. If you see the film, the first thing you see in the film is Richard Gere fighting somebody, and he flips the sword in the air and catches it. Well, I'm the other guy, right? But I spent almost a year of my life training and working out the fights with Richard Gere and Ben Cross for that film. So once the stunt guys realised that, you know, you're an actor, but you can also what we call speak actor. You can talk to the actors and get them to do stuff. You get hired to train them. And I've done a lot of that. I trained Christian Bale for Exodus with his archery. Just got him tuned up for that with the film that he just did. And because we did the Prestige together. And there's a process, and I always start my process with actors, particularly, you know, if you've got a lot of, on King Arthur we had, as I say, 10, Mads Mikkelsen, Hugh Dancy, you know, Clive Owen, Big Ray Stevenson. I had like almost 10 serious young actors that we can't get them hurt. And so I always start it this way, because it's absolutely true. During the filming of First Night with Richard Gere, during one of the big rehearsals, one of the big fight sequences, I was in the middle of all these stunt guys waving and running, and there's things flying through the air and all this kind of stuff. And Richard, it wasn't his fault, it was my fault. I literally, for a minute, my concentration, I caught something out of the corner of my eye, and I saw something that I didn't like. So I turned and moved forward to look what it was. And Richard went back with the sword like that, and he caught me right in the corner of the eye. And literally the sword tip stuck in my eye socket. And it hit me so hard that it actually stunned me. And what happens is, if you ever have a hard eye cut, luckily it didn't go into my eye, literally hit the corner of my eye socket. Split the corner of my eye up. You can't see it now, obviously. Stitched me up and did plastic surgery. And but what happens is the eyeball will go forward and you burst blood vessels inside your eyeball, and so all you've got is this red mist. So all I knew at that point was that I knew I'd been hit in the face and probably in the eye, and badly. And so I'd gone down like that, and Greg Powell came over to me and went, "Take your right hand away." So I took this right hand away, and obviously I was covered in blood, but he could see that this eye was fine. And he said, "Okay, take the other one away." So I put this one, obviously I was bleeding, as you do from your head, you bleed profusely anyway. But also he could see that, you know, my eye was possibly damaged. So they put me in the back of a nice Mercedes car and took me off to the hospital to get sorted out. So I always start my training sessions by explaining to the actors, I've been the guy in the back of the nice Mercedes, bleeding all over the back seat, having been stabbed in the face by a film star, right? And this is not going to happen to you. So if I see something which I think is dangerous, or I think you shouldn't be doing, I'm going to tell you, and you won't do it. Because you are not going to go in a Mercedes to the hospital on my watch. So that's how I start the session, and then we start choreographing and working with people. And usually it's fine. You know, I've never had a problem. Mads Mikkelsen was an absolute dream. If you've seen the film, that little samurai, the way he moves, I was watching him doing a routine, little simple routine, and I went up to him and said, I'm not being funny, have you been trained as a dancer? He said, yeah, I trained to be a ballet dancer. And I went, I can see that. So that the way that he moved, because he moves in such a stylish, fluent way, I saw that art when we were rehearsing, and I went, that's what we're going to do. So we had made that sword for him. I designed and we had that sword built, that Yangling sword, with a little flamed tip of the sword, and that's where it comes from. So it's a creative process. It's like anything else. We had Stellan Skarsgård came to me very early on during the course of all that, and he said, I'm 50, whatever it was then, 54, chain smoker, I've never done a fight. He said, I've never done a sword fight. He said, how am I going to do this? What are you going to do? And I stole from Bob Anderson. If you're going to steal from anybody, steal from the best. And so I said, a sword fight is a drama scene where the blades have the dialogue. And he thought about it, and he went, a drama scene where the sword blades are having, he went, I get it. And literally about a week after practicing and trying to get this, he was stood there and he came to me and said, I've been thinking about what you said. He said, I can't get it out of my mind. And he said, I didn't know what to do with this character. And suddenly he was stood there, and I actually saw it happen. He was standing with the sword, and you could see him thinking about it. He went, this character is all about this sword. This sword does the talking. He says very little. And when he has to draw the sword out and kill somebody with it, he does it completely emotionally, less emotionless, and just does it and says it, and the sword does the talking. He said, I've just found the character, and I found it because of what you said about the dialogue in the scene with the sword. So it's a process, it's a creative process like anything else. You have to understand angles, cameras, lenses, timing, you know, movement, the way the dolly can move around the set and everything. And I love it, it's a great process. It's fun, you know, just trying not to send anybody home in an ambulance. You know?
Did they keep the shot with you getting hit?
No, we weren't shooting it, it was just a rehearsal. Yeah, no, that'd have been great. He did give me the sword though. I actually have the sword, which was one of the original Excalibur fighting swords which Bob had balanced for him. I have it in my apartment in Los Angeles. He gave it to me and went, you should have this. Thanks, mate. Thanks. But no, it was after a couple of days, what happens is the blood drains out the eyeball and the aqueous humor cleans up so you can see through it again and refocus. It just takes a little while. But it was sobering because 3 years on Robin and I never got injured. You know, so to be injured on a big film I went, whoa, this can't happen again. So I've always approached it that way. Yes, look.
You seem to really enjoy understanding everything about what you're working with. Has that always been the case? What made you so interested in all of the things that you're interested in, which is a lot?
I think I grew up in Doncaster. I started making swords in the metalwork room at school. So I grew up as a kid playing in Sherwood Forest, hiding in the Major Oak, which was Robin Hood. Legend has it was Robin Hood's hiding place in Sherwood Forest. So I grew up going to Qn'A Castle, that was escapes to Qn'A Castle, which is just outside of Doncaster, which is the castle which is in Ivanhoe. I did my young courting at Sprotborough Falls, where Sir Walter Scott wrote Ivanhoe. So York, where the Knights Templar had 7 Knights Templar preceptories, and Fountains Abbey, where they have massive green men icons outside of a Cistercian monastery. So I grew up with it. And I guess what triggered it in a way of looking at all of that stuff, and we take in so much information, we just don't use it. And what happened was that I did, after Robin, I used to get invited to these really wacky esoteric conventions. And people were asking me about the imagery and the iconography in the Robin Hood Sherwood that I did, which was pretty, for its time, very risque. We have a horned god of the forest as the good guy, And Robin Hood is his extended arm, if you like, of consciousness, who robs from the rich and attacks the church. And the church, the Norman church at the time, is seen as the Sopranos. It's like they're the gangsters, they're the bad guys. So for its day, it was a very revolutionary show. And people would ask me about these things, and I had stored this stuff away as a kid, and somehow it just popped out of my brain. So when I wrote the first Greenwood Tarot, which was a huge cult success, a lot of that was already in there from my childhood. And then we just did the Wildwood Tarot 3 years ago, which was one of the best-selling tarots of the time, and it's based on the same stuff. So I was lucky enough to have parents that when my father particularly said, I don't care what you do for a living, right? As long as you give, and this is absolutely true, as long as you give everything that you try 110%, and you make it work as best you can. If it doesn't work out, if it's not for you, if it's not something that you know is going to endure or whatever, that's okay. He said, take from that what you have learned and apply it to the next thing, and that way you never lose anything. There's no such thing as failure, because even if something doesn't work, you take something that you've learned and apply it. And I've lived my life that way. And what it's done is open up these possibilities and probabilities in a universe that I probably, you know, from boy from Doncaster, I was destined to be going down a coal mine, or in steelworks. And back, the universe answered and opened doors. And I believe that. I believe if you ask the universe a question, it will bring you an answer. Sometimes not the answer you want. Young man.
One last thing.
Yes.
The creature he mentioned, the Qn'A, the creator of the Transformers, their builders, all that. You probably don't know what that is. Just try to imagine a floating head, no arms or legs, just tentacles, and like 5 faces that are constantly switching around. Each has their own personality, their own voices and everything. And imagine if you had that kind of role. If Michael Bay just came up to you and said, okay, here's your next gig. You're probably going to die at the end. We need you to make this work. Come up with all these voices.
I'm probably going to kill you
Go.
in the end. That's probably what he was saying. You know. What was the question?
Yeah, you're probably going to kill you at the end. You got to come up with all these voices on the fly, so go.
That basically is how I got the job in the beginning. Because what happened was they called me in for a casting call at a meeting to see after King Arthur. And they said, we want you to do 5 different voices all at the same time in one scene. And it was the scene where we were at Griffith's Observatory and all the Autobots are talking about what they're going to do. So we actually filmed a scene where I did all the robot voices, 5 different voices, in one scene, in one conversation. And I can tell you that one of them, actually in fact, it was Jazz. He spoke like this originally. And I was pulling voices, literally. There's a character called Captain Pugwash. You talk like this. Hello, I'm a pirate. I'm a very strange pirate. So we had all of these, I was literally, I had one that talked like this. I am an Autobot. We had lots of different. And obviously they realised what I was doing, so I had to come up with something different. But anyway, so in one scene I had 5 different characters to do within one, and we managed to do it, and that's how I got the job.
So this would just be more of the same?
This would be, it certainly would be a challenge, but yes, it would be more of the same. And as long as Michael doesn't kill me this time, I'd be happy.
Especially if you killed him.
Yeah, that would be. Listen, let me say, Michael gets a lot of stick. I'll say this for the record. Michael gets a lot of stick. And I can tell you from somebody that's spent getting on for 8 years now, 4 films and 5 projects. Michael is one of the most talented people I've ever met in my career. And I've met and worked with some talented people, including Christopher Nolan. So Michael, without doubt, could pick up any piece of equipment on the set and use it. Any camera, any sound stuff, special effects, action, stunts. He knows it all. CGI, he understands that set as better than anybody that I've ever worked with. And he works quick, and he also gives the actors freedom to bring their own stuff, which is why you get the flow. Like, Shia ad-libbed all the time. He would make stuff up, just throw it in. and Michael would let him try stuff. And that is confidence in your own directing, that you can edit it and cut it and get it focused and make it do what, make it work. And so, and the other thing I'll also say is that he's one of the most loyal people I've ever met, not just in Hollywood, but in the film industry. He's a loyal man. And in Hollywood and in Los Angeles, that says a lot to me as a human being. And his sound crew have been with him for a decade. It's the stunt guys have been with him 15 years or so. There's a reason you stay with somebody. You know what I mean? Because you like working at that level. And you are working at that level. It doesn't come any bigger. The last 2 films alone made over $1 billion a piece. I mean, think about that. And so I know they get stick, and I know they get attacked. But it's like, guys, somebody's sitting down in cinemas all over the world, paying their hard-earned money to be entertained by this. So, to me, I'm very proud of them. I'm not in any way, negative about it. I think Bumblebee, for instance, if you take that as an icon, the very fact that that character doesn't exist except in pixels and dimensions and numbers in hard drives somewhere at ILM, and yet wherever I go in the world, if you ask somebody who's your favourite Transformer and why, they'll go Bumblebee because he's loyal, empathetic, he's got a sense of morals. That to me is a real achievement, that they've managed to make those characters human and people can relate to them. That alone, I think, is a real achievement. So, anyway, rambling on. Guys at the back, hoping not to get noticed. Have you got a question? Come on now, I'm going to ask you a question. Okay, all right, anybody else? I think that's, oh, there you go. Come on now.
Having worked behind the camera, choreographing,
that's my agent calling you.
So having worked like choreographing, but then also working as an actor, do you
Yes.
have a preference as to either one, like behind the camera or in front of?
It's all the same process to me. I've written comic books for DC Comics. I've written, 2 books about tarot cards. All of that stuff is the same process. You're pulling stuff out of the air. You're trying to imagine stuff and then make it real for an audience. So to me, when Stellan Skarsgård and Mads Mikkelsen did that fight at the end of the film, I stood there and was very proud and very happy to just be a part of the movie. And so to me, it's all part of the same process. I don't see, I've been in front of the camera a lot and I've been behind the camera a lot, but they're both the same. It's all part of the creative process. And then seeing it to fruition, to be finished, obviously it's just the icing on the cake. But obviously, Mr. Gates in Black Sails was a great character to have been handed. He's got some of the best lines ever said in television, about the nature of the relationship between pirates and the ocean. He pays us and then he claims us. There's no monuments in his life. So they wrote some great stuff for that character, and I enjoy obviously delivering those lines. But it's all part of the same process. I enjoy it all. I enjoy cons. I do. I've said this by public moments. I'm a fan too. I grew up with Star Trek, Voice of the Bottom of the Sea, The Man from U.N.C.L.E., and all those things affected my imagination, my career. So when people come up to me and talk about stuff, I'm happy to talk to people. And I've been very lucky, very fortunate. People have been very kind to me. And so all I do is try and give it back. It's not rocket science. Be nice to people,
Any choreography with Star Wars?
No, I never worked on Star Wars. Bob did. Bob Anderson choreographed. He came in the second film when they realised that the lightsaber was going to be such a big thing that they needed to make it look like it was real. So yeah. Bob Anderson did all of that stuff. And I'd love, trust me. I would love to be involved with that. And one of those questions you usually get asked when you're doing interviews, print or magazines, whatever, they go, one of my favourite questions is, what from any film that you've seen or you've been involved with, would you have if you could have any prop or any idea for any film? And the first thing is the Aston Martin from Goldfinger. But if I couldn't have that, I'd have a lightsaber. Can you imagine being down the pub and some idiot opens their mouths and says something stupid. Close your mouth, I must. Now buy me a beer with your other arm, the one that you've got left. No, that would be, the lightsaber would be, I'd have a lightsaber. Yeah. Okay, any more for any more? I suppose that must be time. I can't.
Blue or red lightsaber?
As what, sorry?
Blue or red lightsaber?
Blue or red?
Actually, there's multiple colors.
Well, those are the ones I like.
Maybe purple. Because purple's kind of a magic colour, you see. Purple was saved for, I don't know if you know this, but the colour of purple was actually saved for the royal families in Britain. It was a special mixture of ink. And so when in lots of films you're supposed to sit your arse on purple cushions, doesn't make you a king. That's because royalty could wear purple, but the people weren't supposed to. So purple has always been this symbol of this mixture of colours that make it unique. So maybe sort of violet.
What about that medieval-looking one with the cross guard in the new movie?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, again, that was interesting. I don't know what they're going to do with that. You see, again, it's an icon. You know, they're using that symbolism of the Knights of the Round Table iconography, which people relate to. It's, you know, the idea of the Lady of the Lake with the sword in the water. It's such powerful Jungian imagery. People resonate to it. Did I say that? Yes, sir.
You mentioned BBC and independent TV in England. Okay. You may not want to answer this, but will Jeremy Clarkson ever work for the BBC again?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I think, from what I understand, the other two guys have said they won't go back to the show either. Right. And Clarkson has become, I must admit, he makes me laugh. And just out of...
I love the man.
Bizarrely, if you go and look up famous Doncastrians, that's people that comes from the town of Doncaster, guess who are two of the famous Doncastrians on that list? Jeremy Clarkson and me. And the other person is a man called Colonel Crapper. And I'll let you work out what he actually invented. That's true. Colonel Crapper of Thorne, Doncaster, invented the flushing toilet. And so there's several people that are famous, people are called Doncaster or Doncastrians. Clarkson's one, and I'm on that list. How bizarre is that?
He goes places no one else will.
Both, yes, in more ways than one. I don't know what happened. I mean, there's all kinds of reports of what happened, but as a show, the franchise of that show has been so successful. And it's successful because of their playing off of each other, ripping the crap out of each other all the time as they do. It's that chemistry that makes the show work. And so I can't believe that the BBC would think that the show could work without one of those legs, that three-legged dog that they've got. One of the dog's going to be able to run with one of the legs missing. And I was like, whatever he did, and I'm sure he did something, but they may try and recast the show and put 3 more guys in, but I can't see it working the way that it has done for the last, what, how long has it been, 7, 8 years?
No,
decade, more than that?
They're on season like 13, 14.
13 or 14? Yeah, no. No, Clarkson's an interesting character, and again, though, he needs the other two to play off. You know, what makes it work is their relationship with each other, which is unique and very funny. I don't know if you've seen, my favourite one to this day is still what was called the Reliant Robin, where they had a 3-wheeled car, where he's driving this 3-wheeled car around and rolls it over, I mean, and just gets it on its side and then put it back up again, drive it away. And I used to sell those in Doncaster because you could drive them on a motorcycle license because they're 3-wheeled and weren't 4-wheeled. And so you could drive those cars. And I mean, that to me is hysterical stuff. So the answer is I don't know. I don't know. But I hope he does, but I hope he finds a vehicle for all 3 of them, which is as good as Top Gear. Because it's very funny. Yes, and politically incorrect. So, Anyway. Any more for any more, or are we done? I think we're done. I think we've done the hour anyway. I better go back and sit at the table and scare people. Yes, it's 1:15. Anyway, thank you very much indeed. Enjoy the rest of the week. Let me just tell you, I'm really pleased that this has been as successful as it has been. Because it's the first time, it's the first con, and trust me, I go to a lot of cons and sometimes they don't survive the first con. This will survive. They've done very well in it, so big hand to them. Thank you very much for being here. Scared the lady away.